My name is Emma, I'm 34, and my sister cheated with my fiancé on my engagement day, and my family took her side. Before I tell you how their karma came in the form of loan sharks and a 911 call, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. The fairy lights twinkled in the backyard, casting a warm, golden glow on the faces of our friends and family. It was my engagement party. My fiancé, Ryan, and I had been together for almost 5 years, and this night was supposed to be the official start of our forever. I was floating. Every laugh, every hug, every congratulatory champagne toast felt like a perfect note in a perfect symphony. Ryan had just given a beautiful speech, and I'd gone inside to freshen up my makeup, my heart so full it felt like it could burst. When I came back out, I couldn't see him. Or my sister, Nicole. I scanned the crowd, a small, silly flicker of annoyance starting in my chest. I wanted to show him off, to hold his hand and be the happy couple everyone was here to celebrate. I checked the kitchen, then the living room. Nothing. A friend pointed towards the side of the house, near the old oak tree where Dad had hung a swing for us as kids. I think I saw them go that way, she said with a smile. I walked around the corner of the house, the party's cheerful buzz fading behind me. And then I saw them. They were in the shadows, but there was no mistaking their silhouettes. Nicole, my younger sister by 2 years, had her hands laced around Ryan's neck. And Ryan, my Ryan, was kissing her. It wasn't a friendly peck. It was deep, passionate, and desperate. A kiss that told a story I had never known existed. The world went silent. The air left my lungs in a painful gasp. It felt like watching a movie, like this couldn't possibly be my life. They hadn't seen me. I backed away, my legs trembling, one hand clamped over my mouth to stifle a sob. I turned and fled. I didn't run through the party. I stumbled out the back gate, down the street, my pearl earrings bouncing, my pretty engagement dress feeling like a costume for a fool. I didn't stop until I reached a sterile, impersonal hotel lobby a few miles away. I paid for a room with a credit card, my hands shaking so badly I could barely sign my name. Once inside, I collapsed onto the bed, the carefully constructed reality of my life shattered into a million pieces. And then my phone, which I'd clutched in a death grip the whole time, started buzzing. A text from Ryan. Then one from Nicole. Then another from Ryan. My thumb hovered over the screen. Did I want to know? Did I have a choice? I called my best friend, Sarah. Her voice, usually so bubbly, was tight with concern when she answered on the first ring. Emma? What's wrong? Where did you go? Tears I hadn't even realized I was holding back started to stream down my face. I couldn't form words, only choked, ragged sobs. Hey, talk to me. Are you okay? Are you hurt? I saw them, I finally whispered, the words scraping my throat raw. Sarah. I saw Ryan and Nicole. They were kissing. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. Silence. Then, a low, furious, that son of a, they're texting me, I cried. I don't know what to do. I can't read it. Okay, she said, her voice shifting into the calm, take-charge tone she used in emergencies. Okay, listen to me. Read them. You need to know everything. Read them out loud to me. I'm right here with you. Her strength gave me a sliver of courage. I opened Ryan's message first. My voice was a monotone whisper as I read it aloud. Emma, I'm so sorry you had to see that. It's been going on for a while. I only proposed to you hoping I could forget my feelings for Nicole, but I can't. You were a temporary distraction. A temporary distraction. 5 years of my life, our shared dreams, our future, a distraction. A wave of nausea rolled over me. Sarah was swearing a blue streak on the phone, a litany of curses aimed at Ryan that would have made a sailor blush. Then, I opened Nicole's. I know you're upset, but you have to understand. Ryan and I are meant to be together. It's fate. We couldn't fight it anymore. Fate. She called her betrayal of her own sister fate. There was no apology. No remorse. Only a selfish, romanticized justification for stabbing me in the heart. Suddenly, a memory, sharp and painful, flashed through my mind. I was 16, getting ready for my junior prom. My grandmother had given me her beautiful, delicate silver locket to wear. It was my most prized possession. Nicole, who was 14, begged to borrow it for a school dance the week before my prom. I said no. She threw a tantrum, and my parents stepped in. "Oh, Emma, don't be selfish," my mother had cooed. "You're the older sister, let her wear it. She'll be careful." My father just grunted in agreement. "Don't cause a fuss." I reluctantly gave in. Of course, she lost it. When I cried, my parents comforted her, telling me, "It was just an accident, honey. Don't make your sister feel bad." My heartbreak was an inconvenience. Her feelings were paramount. It was always like that. Nicole was the golden child, the brilliant, beautiful star, and I was the sensible, reliable, background planet. Her wants always eclipsed my needs. And now, she wanted my fiancé. And just like with the locket, she had taken him, and I was expected to just deal with it. I spent 3 days in that hotel, numb. Sarah brought me clothes and food, sitting with me in silence when I couldn't talk and listening when I finally could. I ignored the dozens of calls from my parents. Finally, knowing I couldn't hide forever, I drove home to pack my things. I had to get out. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw my parents' car. A cold dread settled in my stomach. I walked in the front door, and the scene in the living room stopped me in my tracks. My mother, my father, Nicole, and Ryan were all there. They were sitting together, drinking coffee. It looked domestic. Peaceful. Like a family. My family. But I wasn't part of it. My mother was the first to see me. Her face, a mask of gentle pity, made my skin crawl. "Oh, Emma, honey. We were so worried." Worried? They were here, with them. Nicole and Ryan were sitting close on the love seat, their hands intertwined. As I watched in disbelief, they leaned in and shared a soft kiss. And my mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, a small, happy tear rolling down her cheek. "Isn't it wonderful," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "that they found each other?" I stared at her, my mind struggling to process the sheer insanity of the moment. Wonderful? I finally choked out. He was my fiancé 30 minutes before he was kissing her at our engagement party. "You think this is wonderful?" My father stood up, his face stern. The look he always gave me when I was being difficult. "Now, Emma, that's enough. Stop acting like a child. What's done is done. Your sister is happy. You should be happy for her." Happy for her? My voice rose, shaking with a rage that was finally breaking through the shock. "She blew up my life. He blew up my life. And you're sitting here celebrating? What is wrong with all of you?" "You're being selfish," Nicole said, her voice laced with that familiar, wounded tone she used when she wasn't getting her way. "You're just trying to ruin this for me because you're jealous." That was it. That was the moment something inside me snapped. The years of being pushed aside, of my feelings being invalidated, of being told to be the bigger person, all of it coalesced into a single, clarifying point of light. They would never see me. They would never choose me. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I turned around without another word, walked up the stairs to my room, and pulled out my largest suitcase. I packed methodically. Clothes, books, toiletries. I packed the photos of my friends and left the family albums on the shelf. The whole time, I could hear their muffled voices downstairs. They weren't coming up to stop me. They were probably discussing how dramatic I was being. When I was done, I dragged my suitcase down the stairs. They all stared at me as I walked to the front door. "And where do you think you're going?" my father demanded. I paused with my hand on the doorknob and looked over my shoulder at the 4 people who were supposed to be my world. "I hope you'll all be very happy together," I said, my voice eerily calm. "Goodbye." I walked out, pulled the doors shut behind me, and never looked back. That night, I blocked their numbers. All of them. Weeks later, a thick, cream-colored wedding invitation arrived at Sarah's apartment, where I was staying. I threw it in the trash without opening it. Many of our mutual friends and even some of my own relatives, after hearing the full story, were disgusted. They chose my side. They stopped speaking to my family, too. The perfect family facade my parents had worked so hard to maintain had started to crumble. But I didn't know the extent of it. I didn't care. I was too busy building a new life from the ashes of the old one. The first year was the hardest. There were days I'd wake up in my tiny studio apartment and the loneliness was a physical weight on my chest. I missed the idea of my family, the one I thought I had. I missed Sunday dinners and holiday traditions, even the dysfunctional ones. I poured all that grief and anger into my work. I was a junior marketing associate at a small firm, and I decided I wasn't just going to be good at my job, I was going to be the best. I stayed late. I took on the projects nobody else wanted. I learned, I grew, and I started to climb. Within 2 years, I got a significant promotion. The new salary allowed me to move out of the tiny studio and into a beautiful one-bedroom apartment in a modern, secure building downtown. It was my sanctuary. For the first time, I felt safe. I started making new friends, discovering new hobbies. I was building a life that was entirely mine, on my own terms, free from the shadow of my family's expectations and Nicole's endless needs. 5 years passed. 5 years of silence. 5 years of peace. I was 34, a senior marketing director at a larger company, confident and happy. The pain of the betrayal had faded from a raw, open wound to a thin, silver scar. A reminder of a battle I had fought and won. I rarely thought about them anymore. They were ghosts from another life. Then, one Tuesday evening, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Hello? Emma?" The voice was hesitant, fragile. It took me a second to place it. It was my mother. My blood ran cold. 5 years of silence, and now this. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice flat. "Oh, Emma, thank God. I need your help." "It's Nicole." Of course it was. It was always about Nicole. "I have to go," I said, ready to hang up. "No, please." Her voice cracked with desperation. "Please, just listen. They're in serious trouble." She told me the story in a frantic, rambling rush. After their wedding, Ryan and Nicole had used the money they'd gotten as wedding gifts to start a boutique consulting business. It had failed. Catastrophically. They'd taken out personal loans, maxed out credit cards, and then, in a final act of stupidity, had borrowed money from loan sharks. Now, they were $90,000 in debt, and the people they owed money to were not the forgiving type. They were making threats. "Everyone has chipped in what they can," my mother sobbed. "Your father and I drained our savings. We even dipped into the college fund we set aside for your future kids. We were hoping, could you help? We just need to get these men off their backs." I stood in the middle of my beautiful, peaceful living room, the city lights twinkling outside my window, and I almost laughed. The audacity. The sheer, unmitigated gall. After 5 years of silence, the first time they reach out is to ask me, the daughter they threw away, to bail out the golden child who had ruined my life. No, I said. The word was quiet, but it was solid as steel. What? She whispered, as if she couldn't have heard me correctly. No, I repeated, louder this time. The answer is no. Nicole and Ryan made their choices a long time ago. They can live with the consequences. But their family, she cried. How can you be so cruel? This is about revenge, isn't it? No, this isn't about revenge, I said, my voice dangerously calm. This is about boundaries. I will not set myself on fire to keep them warm. They lost the right to ask me for anything 5 years ago, at my engagement party. Goodbye. I hung up and immediately blocked the number. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. It was from the adrenaline of finally, definitively, closing that door. I thought that was the end of it. I was so wrong. 30 minutes later, my apartment buzzer shrieked. I checked the video feed on the intercom. And my heart stopped. It was them. Nicole and Ryan, standing in the brightly lit lobby of my building. They looked awful. Ryan was gaunt, his eyes darting around nervously. Nicole looked haggard, her designer clothes rumpled, her face pale with desperation. She jabbed the buzzer for my apartment again and again. I didn't answer. I watched as she started shouting my name at the concierge, who was calmly telling her he couldn't let her up without my permission. Then I saw something that made my stomach clench. Ryan pulled a thin piece of metal from his pocket, a lockpick, and started fiddling with the main door lock. The concierge immediately stepped forward, telling him to stop, but Ryan just shoved him aside. They were trying to break in. I backed away from the intercom, my mind racing. This was beyond a family dispute. This was a criminal act. I grabbed my phone, but before I could dial 911, there was a frantic banging on my apartment door. They must have gotten past the front desk and taken the elevator. Emma! I know you're in there. Nicole screamed, her voice muffled by the thick wood. Open this door. You owe us. We're family. The handle of my door began to jiggle violently. I fumbled with my phone, my fingers clumsy with panic. I opened the door just a crack, my phone held up to record. Get away from my apartment, I said, my voice shaking. The moment they saw the opening, they shoved. The door flew open, knocking me backward. Ryan saw the phone in my hand and slapped it away. It skittered across the hardwood floor. No phones, he snarled, his eyes wild. Nicole advanced on me, her face a twisted mask of rage and entitlement. You did this, she shrieked. If you had just given us the money, none of this would be happening. You have to help us. You owe me. She pushed me hard, and I stumbled back, hitting the wall. She shoved a crumpled document into my face. It's a promissory note. Sign it. It says you'll handle our future finances. It's the least you can do after what a bad sister you've been. My brain went into overdrive. While Nicole was screaming and Ryan was trying to pick up the paper she'd dropped, I saw my chance. My keys were on the small table by the door. And on my keychain was a small, gray plastic button. The panic button for my building's security service. It was a feature I never thought I'd use. I lunged for it. Ryan saw me move and grabbed for my arm, but he was too late. My fingers slammed down on the button. I held it for the required 3 seconds. It didn't make a sound, but I knew a signal was now silently screaming for help from the security hub downstairs. I backed away from them, a strange calm washing over me. They hadn't noticed. They were still focused on their own desperation. It's over, I said. Ryan laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. It's not over until you give us the money. Oh, I'm not talking about that, I said, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. I pointed to the small, discreet dome camera on the ceiling of the hallway outside my now open door. I'm talking about this. By the way, smile. The entire building is on a recorded loop. The color drained from their faces. They looked from the camera back to me, comprehension dawning in their eyes. At that exact moment, a piercingly loud alarm began to blare through the hallway, the building's response to the panic button. And cutting through that noise was another, even more satisfying sound, the wail of police sirens, growing rapidly closer. The police were there in under 2 minutes. 2 uniformed officers stepped out of the elevator, their expressions all business. The concierge was with them, pointing a shaking finger at my apartment. They took in the scene in an instant, me, disheveled against the wall, the scattered phone, Nicole and Ryan, frozen like animals in headlights. Nicole immediately started crying. "Officer, thank God. My sister, she's crazy. She's trying to have us evicted." The officer ignored her and looked at me. "Ma'am, are you okay?" I nodded, finding my voice. They forced their way into my apartment. They assaulted me. "That's a lie," Ryan blustered. "This is a family matter. It's about an inheritance dispute, a misunderstanding." The lead officer wasn't buying it. "Sir, your family matter involved you attempting to bypass building security and shoving a member of my staff," the concierge interjected. "We have it all on video." That was the final nail in their coffin. The fight drained out of them. As the officers cuffed them and read them their rights, Nicole kept looking at me, her eyes pleading. "Emma, please. Tell them to stop. You can't do this to me. I'm your sister." I just looked at her, at the woman who had stolen my fiancé, celebrated my pain, and then tried to blame me for her own catastrophic failures. And I felt nothing. Just a vast, quiet emptiness where my love for her used to be. I watched them get led into the elevator, and for the first time in 5 years, I felt truly, completely free. A week later, my doorbell rang. This time, on the video screen, I saw my parents. They looked defeated. Older. I let them in. They stood awkwardly in my entryway, looking around at the life I had built without them. My father, a man I had never seen cry, had tears in his eyes. "We were wrong, Emma," he said, his voice thick. "We were so wrong." After the arrest, the phone started ringing, my mother added, her voice a monotone. "Your Aunt Carol. Old friends." They'd heard what happened. They were ashamed of us. They said we had failed you. And they were right. We saw what everyone else saw all along. "We're so sorry." They finally saw it. Not because they'd had a moral epiphany, but because their public image, the thing they valued above all else, had been shattered. Their apology wasn't for me, it was for them. I took a deep breath. The old Emma would have cried, would have accepted the apology because she was so starved for their approval. But the old Emma was gone. "I hear you," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "And I understand. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry for how this makes you look." They opened their mouths to protest, but I held up a hand. "It's okay. I accept your apology. Not for you, but for me. So I can finally be done with all of this. I forgive you, so I can let it go." I looked them both in the eye. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. And it doesn't mean we can go back. That door is closed. The person you knew is gone. I walked them to the door. They didn't argue. There was nothing left to say. 6 months later, I was hosting a small dinner party in my apartment. My guests were Sarah and a few other close friends, my real family. My chosen family. We were laughing about something silly, the sound echoing in the warm, happy space I had created for myself. Sarah raised her glass. To Emma, she said, her eyes shining. Who built her own damn castle, moat and all. Later that night, after everyone had left, I stood on my balcony, looking out at the city lights. I thought about them. I found out through the grapevine that Nicole and Ryan had avoided jail time, but the plea deal involved them seeing a court-appointed lawyer and declaring bankruptcy. They had to sell everything and move in with my parents. Their perfect life had imploded. I didn't feel joy at their misfortune. I just felt quiet. I thought about the family I had lost, and for a moment, a familiar pang of sadness hit me. But it was fleeting, like a cloud passing in front of the moon. It was replaced by a deep, unshakable sense of peace. My value wasn't tied to their approval. My happiness wasn't dependent on their love. I had found it all on my own. I went back inside and turned the deadbolt on my door. The solid, final click wasn't a sound of fear anymore. It was the sound of sanctuary. The sound of a life that was, finally and completely, mine. Thanks so much for listening to my story. It was a long and painful journey, but I came out stronger on the other side. My question for you all is, have you ever had to cut off a toxic family member to protect your own peace? Let me know your experiences in the comments below. And if my story resonated with you, please give this video a like and subscribe for more.